The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle.
Hello everybody, I hope you've had a good week. Welcome to the Magicians Podcast. I'm Richard Young. Let's do the housekeeping before we get to today's interview. Follow us on Twitter. We are at Magician Podcast, no S on the Magician. Like our Facebook page, just search for The Magicians Podcast. And if you're not into either of those two things, subscribe to us on iTunes. That way, every Friday, you will be alerted that there is a new episode. There will be new episodes every week until episode 24, which will mark the end of the series. It's going to be very, very sad, but I'm sure you're going to cope. My guest today is Duncan Trillo. You probably know him as the creator and owner of the brilliant MagicWeek website. Well, Duncan is so much more than just the guy behind MagicWeek. Over the last 30-something years, he's had an incredible career. You're really not going to believe how much this guy has done. I went and met him at the Magic Circle headquarters to discuss his career. Here he is then, Mr. Duncan Trillo. So, Duncan, thanks for doing this. I will say you are the first person to buy me a drink before we start recording, which is very kind of you. Thanks very much. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
I really appreciate you doing this. And I've been doing my research on you, and you've had an amazing career, first of all. You really have. And I'm going to start with something which I know nobody will know about you unless they're a good friend of yours, which is that your magical career started by demonstrating magic in Hamleys, but it was pre-Marvin's Magic.
Yes.
How did that come about and your road to that point?
That initially actually was from an advert in Abra, and I still remember the advert. It was a one-page ad. This would have been 1977.
Right.
I'd left college having retaken failed O-levels. My parents said, back to college, you get some O-levels, and I had to retake them all because I'd been playing around doing magic at school, I'm afraid. And that advert, the caption was rare opportunity. And you'll see every so often in MagicWeek, I pinch that same line, rare opportunity, because it's just a rare opportunity. It's a very nice line. And it was from John Henley, who ran the Inzani Henley Magic Company. And this was a company that made wooden props, and some of the older magicians will know of them. Lovely props in wood, and a passionate magician. And he'd got the new concession, to run the Hamleys Magic Department. And I applied. And at the time I would have been, how old was I? 17, 18. And had to audition. Mm-hmm. Went up to London, did my audition. And there were three of us who got the job. Brian Berry, who was the manager.
Right.
Dave Brown, who was the assistant manager, and Duncan Trillo, who was the assistant manager.
Assistant manager.
Yeah, really funny. So, but I was just thrilled to pieces, as you can imagine. Because I wanted to be a professional magician, and I knew that this would be a great way to perform magic every day, and it still is perhaps the best way, or one of them.
Well, all the big names have done it, haven't they? That's the thing, really. A lot of them.
A lot have.
Yeah.
It's surprising. And funny enough, as soon as you say big names, I thought Ali Bongo.
Yeah.
And Ali had done it over the years, and Ali overlapped on this one. So every so often I was involved with doing things with Ali Bongo, so I got to know him early on, which was really nice.
How long did you do it for?
I did it for, well, it was a concession, and it was actually, the Hamleys, no one realises, Hamleys that we know today, the famous Regent Street store, moved 2 doors along in the 80s. It was actually slightly further along Regent Street, and there was a back whole building at the back of Hamleys, and again, some people will remember this, and we were in the back of the building, so it was very tucked away. And that concession, after 9 months, that was it. It shut down. It didn't do the business. We had a really bad location. It is location. With retail, it's very much where you are.
Oh, Marvin's now, they're at the front, aren't
Marvin's
they?
had a great pitch. So I did 9 months for John Henley. And then Hamleys themselves took it over. They thought, well, we can buy tricks and sell them. And I carried on working for Hamleys, the actual toy shop, for another 9 months.
So when the toy shop bit ends,
Yeah.
what was your next sort of place that you went from there?
Yeah, it come to a point where I'd got as much as I could, I think, from doing that, and I'd also was no longer nervous in doing magic because you're doing it every day, so the nerves are gone. You're feeling quite confident. And I actually moved back from London back to my parents, and they're down in Brockenhurst.
Okay.
In the New Forest, which is a really nice, quiet place to concentrate on magic, and I worked on my act. And this was an act I'd had before as a sort of when I was at school. I had a magic act, and I did magic shows with the Associated Wizards of the South in their annual Wiz Show.
Right.
But this now was, I got a little bit older, and it was time to polish that act up.
So what was this act?
The act that I actually got going with my first proper contract. I did some stuff in Torquay over Christmas, but the first proper contract was a summer season, and that was an act with 2 or 3 doves and 2 rabbits.
All right.
Plus card productions and all the rest of it. And that was a summer season, 1980, the Ivor Emanuel show, which was great fun. But at the end of that summer season, it was only 13 weeks, but I kind of knew I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in a small theatre dotted around the country doing my magic. It just wasn't me. But funny enough, at the end of that, I used to get the stage all the time, and an ad came up for cruise ships, and I auditioned for that.
So that was 1981, your first...
Yeah, it was. That was now the end of 1980, and I auditioned. It was for Costa Line. I auditioned with a sort of 10-minute act. I had fire in it as well, and doves. And this is kind of post-Saturday Night Fever, we've got the flares still, we're all doing a few dance moves, we're throwing a few twisted body bits and bobs. So it was all very, it's John Travolta,
Yeah.
Well, and that was it, and off I went 6 weeks later on a cruise ship.
Wow. And so what was it like working on a cruise ship in the early 80s? What's interesting, we're going to get to this, is that you went back to cruises again in the 90s, didn't you?
Yes.
So I'm interested to know what they were like then, and then a bit later in the interview we'll find out what they were like in the 90s.
Yeah, and what they're like now and how different it is. That first ship, my actual contract was to do 2 20-minute cabarets and also some cruise duties. And those cruise duties would have been such things as standing on the gangway plank and saying good morning or whatever as people went off on their tours.
Okay.
And I soon wheedled my way out of that. I thought, I don't want to do that. So I got out of the cruise duties, did my 2 10-minute acts, and also did DJing, because the DJ left after a few weeks.
Right.
So I did DJing. And if you go back then, the cabin was tiny. There was no TV, there was no radio, there was nothing. If you wanted to phone home, it was like $5 a minute on this thing that went...
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So you were literally away from home, away from everything for all that time.
And did you find that things kind of dried up at home by the time you got back from 6 months?
Yeah, there was nothing very wet to dry up in a way, to be honest. It was, at home, it was, this was kind of, I was only starting my career, so all I'd done was I worked for an agency, Billy and Trevor George in Torquay, doing some hotel gigs. I'd done the summer season for Billy and Trevor George, and now the cruise. So it was the beginning. So I had nothing to come back to, in a sense. And the initial 6-month contract got extended, so I did another 6 months. But I managed to get my girlfriend out. I had a girlfriend back home.
Right.
First love, and I got her out as a receptionist on the ship. So she came out. So then we were together on the ship, which was great, and that ran its course.
May I ask, does that put a strain on the relationship when you're living and working together?
Yeah, it did at that time.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's a weird thing here, Richard. It's almost back to front. At the very beginning of your life, you suddenly got this... It was fantastic. I was in the Caribbean for a year.
Wow.
It was wonderful. And I loved it. I knew how lucky I was to be there and thoroughly enjoyed it. Saved money as well and all the rest of it. But that's a sort of dream in a way. The other side of me is going, hold on a minute, this isn't real. I don't want to live, I can't live in a cabin. What's this? Because you can carry on forever doing that, you see. Yeah. So I thought, no. And in the back of my mind, before the cruising, I'd seen a documentary on TV featuring street performers in Covent Garden.
And I know this was the thing you went to after that.
Yeah.
And there's a little secret in my research. I found
All right.
out you're the first magician to ever appear on Channel 4.
Oh, okay.
And it was in a documentary about
Yes.
street performing, which
Yeah.
is where you went to.
Yeah.
So tell us how that came about.
Yeah, so I went back to my parents' house as a base. I went back up to London in the summer of 82, and with a street act, I put together a short 10-minute act, and I'd stripped out all the what's the word, twizzling around of the
the John Travolta days.
Exactly.
They were gone for the street performing.
That was gone. I toned it right down. Black cords, black t-shirt with the sleeves pulled up, long sleeve sweatshirt kind of thing with the sleeves pulled up. So it's just a guy in black, made a black table that folded up under my arm, and went busking. I was doing what was essentially a cabaret act to music on the street. So I had a radio cassette. I was doing card productions. I was doing the Zombie Ball. I was doing Professor's Nightmare, Linking Rings, that sort of thing. It's only about 9 or 10 minutes. So, you say, what was it like? Well, I loved it, Richard, because there was no list. There was no, it was completely free. We regulated ourselves. This is for the main outside piazza of Covent Garden. So you felt this tremendous freedom and tremendous satisfaction, because when you're busking, when you're street performing, the audience is there because they want to see you. And if they don't like you, if they think you're a bit boring, they walk away.
They're gone, yeah.
They're gone. Or they don't pay. They might watch a bit and they don't pay. So you're very much rewarded for how much you give as a performer. And really in the 80s, we had nowhere to perform. There was summer season was dying a death. This whole British summer thing, that's gone by the 80s. That was really the 60s. It started to 70s it started, but by the 80s it's gone. So there was, you say I want to be a silent magician, in my stubborn little mind, there was nowhere to work. So,
could you make a living from it back then?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a good living.
It was a good living. You know what? I wasn't on the dole. I was never on the dole. Well, I was when I left school. I was on the dole for 6 weeks.
Right.
That's what you all did in the 70s. You left school and you went on the dole. I was on the dole for 6 weeks until I got a job. But I was then, and that was it in my whole life. It was a good living. The first show I did, I got £8.75.5p.
That's more than Young and Strange get these days.
There you go. That's kind of implanted in my mind, and straight away I did the maths. And at that time, the average, if you worked in a shop, you'd be on £1.50p an hour.
Yeah.
So it's equivalent to say 4 or 5 hours work. So it's,
how many shows a day were you able to do back then?
well, my target was £100 a day is what I targeted.
In 1982?
82, absolutely.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
okay.
was good.
That's
it
amazing.
Was good. Yeah, it was good. That was my target. I didn't always meet my targets, of course. And when the winter came, you don't forget targets. You are literally trying to make a living. When you're performing in the street, unlike theatre, you see all the faces of everyone. You see what they think of you as it's happening.
Brutal honesty as well.
Very honest, yeah. So it's a fantastic. So you learn early on. Wow, eye contact. I want to look at everyone in my audience. I want to make eye contact with everyone so that I've connected with them. So I've made that personal bond with them.
So they don't walk off.
So they don't walk off as well.
Brilliant. So how long did you do it for?
Well, it started in 1982 and went right through to 1990. But actually, in the last 3 years, I moved away from it, sort of thing. So basically, I'd say in 82, 83, 84, absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
Loved living in London. Loved the fact that I was free of what I still call the system. I'm not a great, you look at me, you think he's pretty square. Actually, I'm quite a rebel. And
that's good to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't like the education system that had judged me on a memory test.
Yeah.
So they're judging that you're coming out of school. I hated that whole system. What I loved about the street performing was you were there doing it for yourself and earning your own money.
And working to your strengths as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But inevitably, you reach a point where you're. Well, actually, I wasn't losing interest in '87. I was still loving it. But you want to do other things.
Yeah.
But funny enough, people would come up and offer you a gig, and you didn't take it because the money wasn't what you were making.
But 1987, that's the year you just mentioned. That was when you went
87
you did something in Japan that year.
Yeah, what was a kind of a pivotal year, if you like. Well, in '87, there was a gentleman from Japan called Muchinaga-san, and he came over from Japan. This is all, of course, pre-internet, pre all sorts. So when an agent wanted to find talent, they'd get out and look for it. They didn't just go onto YouTube or whatever. They'd go out and search for it. He wanted street performers for a reproduction Dutch village that had been built in Nagasaki in Japan as a sort of tourist venue. It's like a historical theme park. That's the way to explain it. And he came over to England and he spotted me. And that was my first major thing as a street performer being booked. I'd done a few festivals and things, but it was the first, and so that kind of, and then I came back after that, after Japan, you come back to England and you're like,
So what is it like performing for Japanese people?
It's actually very, very, rewarding, Richard. There's something about the Japanese, as I speak to you now, I'm looking at Japanese technology. It may say Mac, but come on now, come on. The microphone, that's got to be Japanese. The Japanese have a innate sense of anything that's they love new, they love technology, they appreciate finesse, their art, their culture. We're all aware that the Japanese tea service, where they spend 50 minutes to have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
All that stuff, it is very sort of compatible with magic. So when I was in Japan, my main contract was always 15 minutes a day. That's what I did of silent magic. And there's such a appreciative audience. They're a great magic audience, the Japanese. Hey, what are they like? Fantastic audience.
So you falling a little bit out of love with it, but you did it until what year did you say?
Until 1990. That's when I finally. I'll tell you how it finished. Actually, I just remembered how it finished. Summer of 1990, summer of 1990. It was so busy, you just weren't getting the slots. And some clients, you'd book a half-hour slot inside, and I'd do 2 10-minute pieces back to back and turn the audience over. But generally, you weren't getting the slots. So I went to Leicester Square to try it there. Now, Leicester Square was completely not legal. You were not legally allowed to perform in Leicester Square. And I remember in Leicester Square having success, as in building up a crowd and everything. But there was a rough undercurrent.
Of course.
And the final straw for me was I was doing the act. I didn't seem to have the etiquette of Covent Garden, and someone started throwing money in. You see, and it's like, no, don't throw money. So they're throwing money, and at the end of the act, I'm bloody well on the ground picking up coins off the street.
All right.
And by now, I'm thinking, do you know what, Duncan? You've got to stop this. This is time to make a change. And I've done this before in life. Every so often, you just go chonk and make a change. It was a summer, so I had some sort of money. I always had a little set. I used to have a drawer with £50 notes in, actually, back in the day. But so I just said, that's it. And I remember auditioning at Jongleurs nightclub for Thompson Holidays. They were wanting acts. They were flying acts out. And I thought, it's time to get back into the sort of normal, regular side of being an entertainer, being a magician.
So around this sort of time, there's a guy on TV who's becoming bigger and bigger star, and his name's Wayne Dobson.
Oh, yeah.
And you were his act for a number of years. How did that come about?
Well, Wayne saw me at a British Ring convention in around the end of the 80s, 90s. Wayne saw me, was it 1990? I think it must have been 1990. Wayne saw me. I didn't know he'd seen me, and it literally came with a call from his agent saying, we'd like to book you on his summer show. He was gearing up to do a summer show. I can't remember the first one we did, Paynton maybe or somewhere. So I did my first season with Wayne, which was fantastic because there was an opportunity for me to do my silent magic in a magic show where people had come to see magic. So it was just great, and Wayne was an absolute pleasure to work with, of course. It was, happy days. I think I did 3 summers altogether with Wayne.
Yeah.
And his TV, went over into his TV show as well. So I did guest spots on the 3rd series of his TV show. And Wayne, we kind of, we worked well because Wayne's a comedy magician essentially, but he did illusions as well. But the brilliant comedy magician that we know, and I was the manip act, and it was just a nice contrast. But
did you get to spend a lot of time with him? Were you touring with him, or were you just meeting him at the theatre at 4 o'clock?
No, we were meeting at the theatre at 4 o'clock. So if we were on, we'd go for the odd meal and things. But if we were working a season, we'd meet in the dressing room and hang out in the dressing room. Wayne went through my act with all these lovely ideas, but truthfully, by then I'd kind of lost. I don't know, Wayne knows this. I'd kind of lost my drive for magic.
Okay.
That whole passion had gone down a bit.
So how old are you by here? It was early 30s?
Yeah, early 30s. So I've been doing it. By then I've done thousands of shows, partly because of Covent Garden. And I've just I've got other interests. So so it's slightly where it was every so often, in any hobby, in any interest, you go in waves up and down.
Yeah.
And I was so I loved it, and I was so grateful, to be honest, very grateful to have had such a to have done that work. But I wasn't 100% magic. Wayne was, Wayne is, as you know, he's 24/7 magic and still is. I saw Wayne a few months ago, and it's 24/7 magic, which is fantastic.
Duncan, it's nearly half time. You'll know all about this. We need to stop because we got some advertisers. I don't know what that word is.
That's the one.
That's the one. Here's some messages from our sponsors.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Have you found yourself humming that yet? I have. Sometimes when I'm just in the shower or anyway, Gigi-O, free for 30 days. And the be a pro, get Gigi-O line, that was my idea. I was pretty proud of that. So if you haven't tried this out yet, go and do it right now. There's a free 30-day trial. Gigi-O is a web-based piece of software for you to run your business on. So that means you don't have to carry your laptop with you everywhere if you're away for a few days and you need to run your business. If you can get access to the internet, you can access all of your bookings. It will generate PDF contracts for you. And also, here's a great feature. It's automatically linked to your diary on your phone or tablet. So when you put a gig into Gigi-O, it will then automatically go to your diary on your phone. So it just makes everything a lot more organised. All the top guys are using it, and you can go to the website gigio.co.uk. You can read all the testimonials from the other top professionals in the country who are using it. It's just basically going to make your business much more organised and give you more time to do other things that you love doing. So if you go to gigio.co.uk right now, you can take a free 30-day trial. You really have nothing to use. You can just have a look at it and, see if you think it will work for you. It almost certainly will, and you will thank me when you see me. So go and check it out, gigio.co.uk. That's Gigio spelled gigio.co.uk. Great sponsors there. Check them out. So in the commercial break, I love that I can say I've got a commercial break now. It's not just one sponsor too. Magic Circle Gigi-O, check them out. But you mentioned you were losing the passion, but you're in your early 30s now.
Yeah.
I'm in I've just turned 30. That's a terrifying thought, actually.
I mean, your show, you're doing the tour at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
Richard? And it's going from strength to strength. I know you did. I've done my research. You did Penn and Teller, which I saw you on at the time, of course. But obviously you're absolutely into it.
Yeah, 24/7, like you said.
Yeah, I think I'd hit a bit of burnout. it's like business. If there are two of you, it's worth the brains of 3, 4 or 5. So say for you now, you've got your Young and Strange show. When you're bouncing ideas, the thing can really take off. When you're on your own as a solo performer, you know, and you're already feeling a bit like burnt out on the magic, you kind of, do you see what I mean? You kind of hit a bit of a brick wall. So at that time, I put some new stuff in. I had the whole dancing hanky thing where the hanky, you know, I made my own box, the chest, where the hanky, the lid opens and the hanky comes out and takes a bow at the end of the act, which was really nice, and that was a lot of work. But just time for a change.
Now, when I do, sometimes I do a 3-hour long close-up gig.
Wow.
And it feels like it's never going to end.
Yeah.
You have done a 19-month long gig.
Right.
And so, obviously, you're at this point, but you get a contract with Royal Caribbean. Was it initially 12 months and then extended?
No, initially 6.
6, but it just kept getting extended. What is that? First of all, were you by yourself?
No, that contract with Royal Caribbean was about 1994. So I was now married, very happily married to Keiko, my Japanese wife, because I'd also done quite a lot of work when I wasn't working with Wayne. I'd be off to Japan and stuff around in the winter and things. So so work-wise, that was all going well, and I got to say, I just enjoyed Japan. I found the whole thing. It's an incredible country.
Is the gigs in Japan?
Yeah.
Are they still coming from the original gig in Japan?
They did. They did. I actually worked for 3 different sets of things, or 3 different lots of people in the end. But yeah, it was all once. It kind of snowballs a little bit. We were married, and in fact, you know what? How's this for a honeymoon? We got married. And we went off, all my honeymoons were free, it was all free. We got married and I was still doing Thompsons then, this is in 93. So I was doing these Thompson fly-out things. So we went out to Ibiza for about 3 weeks and then flew back. Then we went to Japan for about 3 weeks to a new place, Hokkaido. Another theme park where they had entertainers dotted around, you know. I was out there for 3 weeks. And then after that, we were off cruise work again, and that was through an agent that Leo Ward, who's a fantastic magician, British magician, had recommended me to before, and they'd offered us this contract that you've just referred to, the 19 months. They wanted me to go into a production show with 3 illusions. And I didn't want to just go and buy 3 illusions off the peg. And I literally kind of took 6 months off to invent and build 3 illusions. I love making things, Richard. I've done up an old flat and done up a house, and I like making things. I like doing things. And I sometimes find the magic when I'm doing it over and over and over. It's of the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So love it. In the moment, but you're not actually physically doing anything. So I thought, right, for this contract, I said to the agent, is it okay if I don't start on that date? Can you hold it back for the next 6-month period? And I'll go in on the next slot, because it was to be slotted into a magic show, a production show that was already there.
You were taking over from Johnny Hart,
yes,
weren't you?
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I never met Johnny Hart at that time. I met him since. But yeah, Johnny Hart was on. It was a ship called the Sun Viking, and Johnny Hart was in the show called The Magic Touch. And so I wanted to actually make my own illusions. And at the time we were living in a flat, a first floor flat. And Keiko's great. She did buy, and I turned the kitchen into a workshop. A mess everywhere. And came up with 3 illusions. One of them, which I still have, and is quite nice. It's kind of original and different.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, you haven't seen it. No one's seen it because I keep it hidden away. But that was a challenge there, and they all had a kind of a Japanese theme to them. You know, that's how they wanted to make the show with musical numbers from Japanese, everything sort of Oriental kind of theme. And I was easy with that. It's cruise ship. It's like, light entertainment, whatever you want. And so we went with these illusions and out on the ship for a 6-month contract, and that literally carried on and on and on. It ended up 19 months. We did get 10 days off in the middle.
Wow, I mean, that's 10 days. What's that like, Duncan? 19 months. This is the key point. You're on the same ship.
Yes, same ship, same cabin. It was fantastic. We were absolutely, we get on very well. So there was no, because you do hear couples sometimes it will split them up being in that such a close proximity. We get on very well, so that was all fine. But I did reach, and I was doing it for the money as well, Richard. I've got to be honest. The real.
May I ask you? This must change your status financially when you do.
The difference was huge.
You come off at the end of 19 months, and you're in a different place financially.
Yes,
right?
You are. Because, normally with Magic, you have a gig on Monday and you earn money. You don't have a gig on Tuesday, you're penniless. So everything gets averaged out. So it doesn't matter that you earn some good money in the year every so often or whatever. It all averages down to nothing. So the cruising, I was very aware, we both were, that this was a real opportunity. And Keiko was in the act. Keiko came on. She'd never done this stuff before, but we kind of knew she could do it. She came on and jumped in the box.
Yeah.
But better when she was out of the box. Fantastic. She was so good at it. She was naturally very good at it. So there we were, and we realised that when I said, would you like to carry on? Yes. And would you like to carry on again? Yes. And actually, truthfully, I'd have carried on for another one as well, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because although it does become, we were doing sort of Caribbean in Alaska, that's how that one was going. It does become, you do feel you're in this sort of luxury hotel, but you're locked in,
Yeah.
But we used that to save money, and what we did was send money home and to a bank account at home, and by the end of it, we had enough to. I'd already bought my flat in London. I had a flat in East London, and I got that mortgage going when I was busking. So we came back from the ship, and we had enough money to. This was quite a good move to buy. We bought an old run-down house, but kept that flat going and rented it out.
Right,
so we rented out the flat, but we more or less bought the house outright. It was a tumble-down old townhouse. It was a lovely house but it was a tumble-down old house that I started doing up. But yeah, it absolutely made huge difference.
So when you do come back, you go back to do some work with Wayne again.
Yes,
but
yeah.
He's at a different point in his career by now. This is 96, I think.
Yeah.
You did a season with him in Jersey.
Yeah.
But how was it different working with him around that time to when you had sort of, back in the very early 90s when you started?
Well, the Jersey season was, again, very enjoyable. I think it was only 4 weeks or 6 weeks. And then I was also sort of doing other bits and bobs, but not a lot of money coming in then, to be frank, Richard. And from sort of those few years, I had my income dropped right down because I didn't want to go away because we wanted to start a family.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be away, and I kind of, So
you've done quite a few TV things, but they're all like one-off things that you've done. You've done some consultancy. So what are some of your favourite sort of TV and consultancy things that you've done?
There was a show called Illusions, and that was a kids show, and it was Fergus Roy of Davenport's who put that together, and they'd have magicians on there, so I did that. And then after doing that, they booked me for the Sooty show, and then the Sooty show booked me for one. After the Sooty show, I got booked for Free Time. So I had a little burst of doing a few bits and bobs, but I was always kind of restricted by the fact that it was just he's a silent magician. I don't speak, and I didn't want to speak. Really, it wasn't my thing. I didn't want to do the comedy chat stuff. It's not me. So I had bits and bobs of TV. I did a few commercials over the years. There's a magician manipulating playing cards and stuff.
And some of the consultancy work you've done?
I did some consultancy for film and stuff. This sounds terrible. It was never really what I wanted to do. I always kind of liked being at home. I don't know if that's because I've worked away a lot over the years. But if you said to me now, Duncan, do you want to go up to Newcastle tomorrow to consult on a theatrical production that they want to levitate no, I don't want to. It's not what I want to do. So, I did do some consulting things. I'm trying to remember what, but I did a few films. Yeah.
When you get to this sort of period now, you're sort of 98, 99, Are you in your head now looking for an alternative source of income to performing, and you had enough of it? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, actually, there was always a plan in the back of my head, right from in 88, 89. I remember going out on these seasons in Japan and working out what I was going to do. I wanted to produce magic videos, and I wanted to manufacture magic, but props, because there was still actual physical props rather than what we see now, which is a lot of small stuff, the close-up thing, the street thing's huge. But I wanted to manufacture, I was kind of a bit out of touch on this one. I still wanted to manufacture a really great dove cage or something, or a really elegant magician's stand, that sort of thing. So I had that in my mind, and I wanted to do, there were magic videos, but they were not good, they were really bad. And I wanted to do, funny enough, what we're doing now, I wanted to do interviews with magicians. So the idea was that I was going to interview the magician.
I'm glad you didn't.
No. I wanted to interview the magician and then have them do some magic, but it was always going to be an interview and a chat, if you like the chat show kind of format, because that hadn't been done. We saw these awful drab guys with a grey backdrop going, then you deal the third card, the fourth card, the fifth card, the sixth card, the seventh card. Now, and this sort of stuff, it's awful. I still can't watch magic videos, I'm afraid, to this day. So that's what I wanted to do. None of that happened because at the end of the 90s, I hit on the internet, and then I was off in a whole different direction.
Your relationship with Russ, because I know Russ Stevens has been your best friend.
Yes.
And Russ mentioned to me you met in the toy shop, didn't you?
Yeah, in Hamley's magic department.
Tell me, that's what's that now, 30-year friendship?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was fun. Russ used to, I was working there, we were both in our teens, and Russ would come in with this worst haircut you've ever seen. He won't mind me saying this. He had a terrible fringe. What was it called? That kind of boom, this great big heavy haircut.
I think that is the official name for it. That sound you just made there.
A parka jacket, and he could probably introduce himself or whatever. We said hello and we hit it off straight away. Russ is one of the funniest guys you can ever meet. When you know Russ, he is so funny. So he'd come in, he'd hang out in the magic department, and then when I knocked off work, we'd go off and go down to Burger King and have a burger and go and see a movie. And we saw Saturday Night Fever together first time. Star Wars we saw it together first time. So there was all this. So we both had a real interest in cinema, and sort of especially the visual side, because Russ had just won the Young Magician of the Year.
Yeah.
And then it was Russ who helped me with my doves. I'd never had a dove, so he showed me the dove harnesses. He showed me how to produce a dove. He was very generous and helpful with all that stuff.
Well, he'd had a similar act, hadn't he? With the dogs and the...
Yeah. Russ had... Russ would come into Hamley's on Monday and say, I think I'm going to get some poodles and put them in the act. And then he'd come in on Friday and say, I've got the poodles. And then next week he'd say, I'm doing that. I think I'm going to get a chicken. And then a week later he's like, I've got the chicken. I'm going to get a cockatoo. And at one point, literally, it was like the Animal Roadshow. He had all these animals. It was ridiculous. The reason was he was getting some great work because he'd won the Young Magician of the Year is a fantastic title. It's a wonderful competition. I still think it's the best competition in British magic. Young Magician of the Year. Wow. He'd won that. So he was on Blue Peter and things like that. But he'd also got some sort of really good nighttime shows, evening tea. What do you call it? The Good Old Days, New Year's Eve. He did the Good Old Days on New Year's Eve. That was prime time. So Russ was putting his act together to go off and do really good summer seasons.
Has the friendship lasted so long because you share very similar opinions of things, or?
I don't know how opinionated I'm going to be on this. We're both very opinionated, really, Richard. Yeah, and our magical thinking is absolutely in sync.
Nice.
And I think it's because our influences, we were both silent magicians. 10-minute silent act. That's what I wanted to do. That's what Russ wanted to do. So when you meet, I didn't know many magicians before coming to London. So when you meet someone of your same age with the same interest, we're great buddies.
Yeah.
He was the best man at my wedding. He's
Wow.
Yeah.
So we get to the year 2000 and you launch MagicWeek.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, I visit every week, and I think every magician does, pretty much like our weekly newspaper. I hope you don't take that the wrong way. That's what it is to me. But was that immediately your sort of your exit strategy from performing? Was that the way you looked at it?
Not an exit strategy, but before Magic Week came about, I think I mentioned earlier that I wanted to do magic videos, I wanted to produce magic and make magic, and then in 1999 I bought my first PC and went on the internet and realised that it was fragmented. There were magic clubs, a few magic clubs had websites, there were magicians with websites, but there was nothing drawing it all together. There was no one place. And if you look at the UK, we're very lucky in the UK. The geographical size of the UK means that if I say to you, there's a show in Bristol that we got to see, Richard, should we go and see it? We can go and see it. We can go, it's doable. So Magic Week, it just came. I just thought, wow, it just came to me. I'm going to do a website for the British magicians, a news site.
Yeah.
And I literally went out to Japan. I was in Japan in April 2000 for a 3-week gig. Funny enough, with a guy, I was there telling there was another magic act out there, Scott and Muriel, FISM winners. And Scott was telling me he was going to enter FISM, and I thought, yeah, good luck. Because Scott was doing a comedy act at the time that the Japanese didn't get, which was really funny because it's a kind of spoof magic act and the audiences didn't quite know what was spoof and what wasn't. So Scott was out there saying, I'm going to do everything. And I was saying, I've had this idea for Magic Week, and I'd registered about that just before I left. And I went out there with a handbook of how to make websites.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and literally, so when you're on any gig, you always try and learn something, don't just go out there and go, try and do something with your time. And I worked my way through this horrible HTML manual and all the rest of it. So I kind of learned that basic web design. So that when I came back from there, it was like, yeah, I'm going to launch Magic Week. And the actual Magic Week, what you see now, I haven't changed the design. It does look dated, but it's kind of, I hope it's somewhere that people know and trust.
Yeah.
So half of me is saying, hey, I can design a much better site than that now, because that was 2000 web design, right? But the other side says, it works.
Yeah.
It works. It's kind of user friendly. You know where you are with it.
Yeah.
So that's Magic.
Has there been any sort of challenges with it over the last 14 years in terms to, I don't think you've ever missed a week, have you? Have you ever missed a week?
Well, I did have a thing where we were on holiday in Japan seeing Keiko's parents, and that was when the Icelandic volcano
ash.
I think that's 2010. And there's a funny story there. We were literally on our airplane flying home, and 5 hours into the flight coming home, we knew nothing of this volcano whatsoever. 5 hours into the flight, an announcement came over. We're returning to Tokyo's airport because of an ash cloud thing, and it was a nightmare for me, Richard, because I'm the kind of guy, when I'm out, I'm out. Like, I don't do mobile phones and all this stuff, all the 24/7. When I'm off, I'm off. It's like, so when I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. So I've gone out there with no technology whatsoever. Right. Now the blooming plane's turning around and we're going back to Tokyo, and I'm going, oh no, what am I going to do? Because Magic Week, I kind of might have put it up early, and there'll be a note saying the next issue will be a little bit late. So that was a disaster, and I was stuck in Tokyo for trying to get flights back, trying to get home to England. In the end, I got an Italian flight into Italy and got trains and such through Switzerland, France, and ferries and all the rest of it to get home.
Unfortunately, the drawer full of £50 notes is in England, so you can't buy yourself a new computer while you're out in Japan to get it.
Yeah.
So 2004, you win the Magic Circle Stage Magician of the Year.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you to do that?
Well, that was a funny one. Stage magic, silent magic, that's what I do. So when the Stage Magician of the Year competition was introduced, when the Circle introduced it, I thought, yeah, I've got to enter it. So I kind of did it for me, in a way. And I don't know if that sounds silly. I didn't do it for work or anything, because by then I still do my act, but I just do a few gigs a year. So I just did it because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And
big honour? A big honour for you to do it?
Well, yeah, actually. And what I was entering with, truthfully, Richard, is it's not for magicians, because it's more or less standard stuff. It's for it's for people. When you're standing there producing playing cards, wow, is that original? Yeah. Wow, is that a good trick? They've never seen, so the act is it's for people. It's for the layman. It wasn't an act for magicians.
I didn't realise it myself, because I grew up going to magic competitions and conventions, seeing it. And then in our act, Sam Strange does a card manipulation.
Yes.
And I watch the audience and go,
they love it.
My goodness. They don't know where they're coming from.
They don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And if they do start to half try and work it out, hey, that's the fun of magic. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. But they love the sleight of hand aspect. It's very magical. And they don't see that stuff live anymore, Richard, because they may see a magician at a party going around doing magic, but stage magic, hey, you don't see it, do you? No. So no, my act was never. It was for a lay audience. But yeah, I won in 2004, and that was nice. Yeah.
Duncan Trillo, it's time for the quickfire questions. Are you ready?
Right. Okay. I'm just going to have a
swig of water.
Sip of this Aguacon gas. Yeah.
That's it. So here we go. Who is your favourite magician of all time?
Richard Russs.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Richard Russs was a silent magic act, brilliant manipulator. But more than that, it was how he, as a silent magician, connected with his audience. Because until you've tried doing silent magic, that's a hard thing. You can't speak to them. Now, normally we communicate through speech. We also communicate through eye contact, like we're looking at each other now. But hey, we're in the same room, it's easy. If we're standing 100 feet apart, it's harder. So he was a great communicator. He'd connect with his whole audience. His act for me was just brilliant. Fantastic cards, lots of original stuff. Here I am with my magician's hat on. I want to see, if I'm watching a magician, I want to see something original too. So yeah, he's a brilliant performer. Was a brilliant performer.
Have you got are there any sort of magicians that you've seen, like maybe younger magicians today, who you look at and you go, that person's got potential? Or
oh yeah.
What are some of the younger magicians who you really like?
Well, Troy, who I saw 10 years ago here at the Circle. It was a J Day, Junior Day, and I think I was on the evening show, and Troy was in the competition, and I watched Troy's act, and Troy was the most exciting sort of magician that I've seen for the last 10 years. He was fantastic. And I remember at the time writing the MagicWeek, and I don't do it very often, but I did say, whoa, Troy, he won the Young Magician competition, and one of the best magicians I've seen for years or something.
What about favourite trick of all time for you? Let's start with one that you perform.
Well, okay.
You're still not going to tell us about this one you've built, are you?
Oh, well, I wouldn't. No, you know what? I'd love to, but you know what? Explaining illusions is there's nothing worse than someone explaining a trick on the telephone or something. So no, favourite trick? I don't know. I guess it might just be card productions. In a way, it might go right back to that. That was one of my initial draws, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah.
A favourite trick you've seen another magician do of yours?
Perhaps Finn John, who I saw at Ron's Day. When I was at school, as a teenager, I always went to the convention. I saw, lots of great acts there. But I think maybe Finn John's Floating Ball, because I was sitting in the front, so I was literally 12 feet away, with a fully lit stage, and there's a silver sphere. It's very pure magic, a silver sphere floating across the stage, and there is no thread, because I can't see one. There is no thread. And it was, I was 14 or something. Absolutely magical.
So tell us about a few more of your favourites.
Favourite magicians?
Yeah.
I've actually done a bit of pre-show here, Richard. So I've got a little list. I've got a few jotted down, because I knew this question's coming up. And Albert Goshman, probably my favourite close-up magician. Just a wonderful manner, a little bit of gruffness, fantastic magic, because again, this is as a teenager I saw him. Every time that salt shaker was lifted, the coin was underneath. Puts it down, a minute later it's underneath again. Mind-blowing magic, wonderful performer. Jerry Sadowitz. I love Jerry's work. And I know Jerry, and I slipped into his show in Camden Town maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, a close-up show, and he came up to me beforehand. I was with a friend and he said, I really don't want magicians in. And I completely respected that and sat quietly at the back, but we got in. And we saw a wonderful show. He's a brilliant performer, a unique performer. And in fact, Jerry asked me on Magic Week not to mention his shows, so I don't list them.
That's interesting.
Because he doesn't. I get it completely. He doesn't want magicians coming to the show.
I saw him when I was 16.
Yeah.
Obviously, no one knew I was a magician at the time. But yeah, brilliant show. Brilliant performer.
Yes. Tamariz, seeing him at the Isle of Man convention. I can't remember if it was in lecture or if he was giving a performance, but I just remember, wow. Jan Frisch at Blackpool.
Oh, amazing.
Another close-up. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely kind of almost reinventing close-up magic. Guy Hollingworth. When I first saw Guy's, I'd been away, so I didn't... I came back, I think it was after the cruising, that he showed me his torn and restored card, and it was like, wow.
I was a complete idiot to him once. Wow. He was selling the book at International.
Yes.
I don't know, I was about 14, and I walked up to him, I said, if you do the torn and restored card,
did you give him a tip?
I'll buy the book. And
really?
He did it, and I bought the book, but afterwards I've always thought, what an idiot I was to say that. I hope he's forgiven me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He won't remember.
No, that's funny.
Who else?
For sort of my field, silent magic, Marco Carvo, whose act was, Paul Stone brought him over, just stunning magic, absolutely stunning. You think sometimes, hey, it's all gone as far as it can, and then along comes someone else. So that's wonderful. Jeff McBride. Mm-hmm. But this is Jeff McBride, as I remember back when he first came onto the scene, and it was doing magic to Joe's sample. His card routine to Joe. I'm a big jazz fusion guy, and Joe Sample was from the Crusaders. But anyway, so I loved the music, I loved the cards, I loved also the whole act, the mask, the whole piece. But I liked it with the music he used to do it with. I think then he's changed his music. Change your music back, Jeff. A fantastic performer. Cardini, Cardini. When you see these videos, first time you see a video of Cardini as a kid, you go, wow. Channing Pollock, Johnny Hart. Takamitsu Yoshida, this Japanese guy, manipulating not the jumbo cards, what do they call those giant things? They're sort of huge playing cards. Siegfried and Roy, when I first saw that.
Have you seen the show?
Yeah, that, funny enough, was in the middle of the cruise contract. We had 10 days off, and together with Soren Ikura, who was a juggling act, Keiko and I went off to Vegas for a holiday, which was absolutely wonderful. First time I'd been to Vegas. And quick story about Siegfried and Roy, there were no tickets. But we were told at the box office, well, maybe if you come back at this time, you may queue up and maybe get some. And I didn't know if that was part of the hype, so there's always a queue. Maybe always a line of people. But we went back and we bought tickets, we got tickets, and we ended up sitting. There were two cutouts, I call them cutouts, where it's hard to explain, but anyway,
it's in the middle of like a walkway.
Yeah. So
I've
we were
seen some
just
videos.
Right at the front of the walkway.
Yeah.
To the point where when they came round and they're shaking hands with people, Roy leant over to Keiko and said "Konnichiwa," hello in Japanese. So we'd gone from this, we're not going to see Siegfried and Roy, they don't have any tickets, to actually having the best seats in the house. They were superb. Absolutely, and I literally, it sounds really bad, but I did, brought a tear to the eye. I was so, I've been bottled up on this bloody cabin on a cruise ship for all that time, and there I was seeing Siegfried and Roy.
It's fascinating. David Penn, I've just done a podcast with him, and you can hear his episode, it's already out there, and David Penn says exactly the same thing.
Oh, really? Right. Few quickies, Lance Burton, who we saw as well, absolutely brilliant. Shimada.
Oh, yes.
Again, all these names are, as I see them in my memory, at their best, if that makes sense, Richard. So sometimes you'll see a performer and they're always not so good now, whatever. Hey, come on. You always go for them, have them as they were at their best. That's how I kind of rate a magician.
Judge them,
Yeah. Norm Nielsen, Yuho Jin.
He's already there, isn't he?
Oh wow!
He's already on that list, and it's well deserved.
Early Copperfield. Watching David Copperfield's card routine. When I was at that time, I was washing up part time in a hotel. I think when was that? I don't know. Anyway, it was a point when I was doing a part-time thing, washing up dishes in a hotel. I'm in the staff room watching this Copperfield show, and on comes David Copperfield and his card routine. Wow, fantastic.
It was the best night of my life,
What was?
We saw David Copperfield in Vegas.
Oh, really?
And then he took us on a tour around the warehouse.
Oh, wow. Now I'm sure I heard about that. Fantastic.
Best night of my life.
I haven't met him, but...
he's an absolute gentleman.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Who else have I got? David Blaine I've got on my list. Because David Blaine, has completely reinvented magic.
Yeah.
He's dragged it out of, in the 80s, 90s, it was getting a bit naff. He really kind of reinvented it for everyone. So, big David Blaine fan. And a guy called David Ramsey, who's a magician who I worked in Japan with, who's a friend, who's a fantastic magician. And loads more. And I haven't even mentioned some of them. Can I burst a few more names?
Of course you can. These are more UK names, some of these guys.
Yeah, I've jotted down, Paul, you asked me what sort of favourite acts. Paul Daniels' club act. Wow.
Yeah.
And I saw him with a friend from school at the Maison Royale in Bournemouth. And this was just after he'd done wheel tappers and shunters, but that was about it. And I went to see his club act. 40 minutes of this brilliant magician who was also modest. That, real underlying modesty there. Great charm, great humour, sharp as anything, wit, fantastic magic, but what was the £10 note and a walnut in an egg in a lemon or whatever, the chairs, the chop cut.
It's all on Bravura there.
I haven't seen that. I heard great things.
I'm trying to get Paul on this podcast.
Oh yes, yeah,
he's playing hard to get at the moment. I will keep trying for my listeners.
And a few other quick comedy names that are in magic that I love. Mel Mellors, David Williamson, Michael Finney, Graham Jolly, and I've also jotted down here Uri Geller. Now I'm sure he doesn't do comedy. I'm a huge Uri Geller fan. I think he's a man outside a fantastic magician, absolutely brilliant showman. Love what he does, and of course Darren. Darren's stuff, like David Blaine, those are the two names that literally changed so much, especially in this country for British magic. Darren's influence is huge.
Enormous.
Huge.
What advice would you give to the young magician who's listening to this today?
I think I would definitely say be yourself as a performer. Make sure you're yourself. Stick to what you believe in, so don't let people put you off. Listen to everything, but take the good advice. Don't worry about what other people are doing. In fact, enjoy the success of other people, as I do. I do. I've always I love the success of friends and so on.
That's a great answer.
Go for it. Go for it. Believe in yourself. But as a performer, be yourself. Be natural. Be a natural performer. I mentioned earlier Troy. When I saw Troy as a 15-year-old kid, it was just a pleasure because it was just this lovely manner. And I think we're going to see the best of Troy. I don't think we've seen the best of Troy at all on TV. I think we're going to see the best of Troy in the future. This is just the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to go into all sorts of new places.
Final question.
Yeah.
How much does it annoy you when someone misses the 12 p.m. deadline on a Friday for MagicWeek?
It's actually, I'm quite brutal now. Sometimes I'll switch off the email, so I don't know if they've emailed me after. It's 12 noon, isn't it?
12 noon on Friday. Duncan, this has been great fun. Thanks so much for doing this. That's Duncan Trillo, everybody.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks very much.
Hasn't he done so much stuff? Thank you, Duncan, for your time. It was really great chatting to you. A brilliant career and a great podcast. Really happy with this one. Thanks very much for tuning in this week, everybody. Another quick reminder, follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, at Magician Podcast, or of course, like our Facebook page. Just search for The Magicians Podcast. Press the subscribe button, and that way we will see you again next week. See you then. Goodbye.